Today, we're talking all about anxiety, helping our kids and our families cope and heal. Carla Atherton is director of the Healthy Family Formula, host of the Children's Health Summit, and a family health and nutrition coach. Carla is a mom of three who specializes in family health with a focus on functional, holistic health and wellness, with specific interest in chronic childhood illnesses. Carla coaches families to overcome health challenges using the principles of functional health and lifestyle medicine. She equips parents to lead the whole family through the minefield of chronic illnesses we are facing today into good health, vitality, and joy. Join Carla and 48 of the leading experts on family health for the Children Health Summit 4 at childrenhealthsummit.com.
Carla, welcome to Empowered Kids TV. It's lovely to have you on the program.
Thank you.
Today we wanted to talk about anxiety, and it's a topic that's really close to my heart. And as you do research, what you can see is that the levels of anxiety seem to be rising across all age groups and socioeconomic groups. And for me, what's the scariest thing when I look at that statistic is that it's really saying to us that our kids are now suffering from anxiety. And when I look at it, they've actually mentioned that the average age for the onset of an anxiety disorder is now 11 years old. So I really wanted to start by getting a really good understanding of what is anxiety and how does it really impact our minds and our bodies.
Okay, well, that's a huge question. I guess we could start with what is anxiety, and we kind of all have our own definition, and we think it's like a psychological definition, right? It's like a group of feelings. It's like something that you feel anxious, right? Like there's this you kind of like builds up in your belly, and you just I don't know, you can't really breathe, and it's just it's not a pleasant feeling. It's like a foreboding, and it's not necessarily fear, but it's in that fear category, right? Like it's like a anticipation, but it's not good, like an excitement. It's like you're excited, but in a bad way, right? Yeah. So, and then if we consider ourselves being anxious, right? That's sort of, or having chronic anxiety, something that happens, more often than not, and in situations where we probably don't really need to be anxious, then that's when we feel that there's a problem. Because sometimes you can be anxious for things like the unknown, right, makes you anxious. Like if you're going up on a stage for the first time, or you're being interviewed online for the first time, or something like that, right? I mean, that's going to make you anxious. Like that's just the normal thing of facing the unknown. But I think that often, like our children in particular, you mentioned kids getting anxious early as 11, being diagnosed with anxiety disorders, never mind just like a mild kind of thing that sort of happens more often than not. Those sorts of things we're seeing more and more, like I don't know, I see it all the time. And I don't remember actually ever having that when I was a kid. And I don't want to go to the good old days all the time, but really there were good old days when it comes to anxiety disorders. Like this didn't happen as much. And it would happen, when someone came through a really big trauma, or, had hard times at home, or was really sick, or faced a lot of, strife in their life that, was more than what we should really have on a day-to-day basis. That happened. But now kids in regular day-to-day life, going to school, going to sporting events, just living life, in their social circles, those things are causing anxiety when maybe they don't really need to be responding with anxiety, or the response of anxiety is too great, or the anxiety is causing them problems in those areas of their lives. So it's like a feedback loop that happens. So yeah, let's define anxiety. I don't want to go with a clinical definition. I want to talk about, we're looking at our kids and we see, yeah, they're anxious. Why are they anxious? And then we can deal with that anxiety by knowing the root cause, and regardless of whether it's like a sort of a more mild experience of anxiety, or that goes all the way down the spectrum to like a deep, like where, the kids are agoraphobic, they're not going to school, they're, oppositional, they're having like problems, integrating in society at all, or dealing with stress, period. So we can go the whole gamut by understanding what some of those root causes are.
As a child, I suffered with anxiety. And I can actually remember points where now I know I had panic attacks. But back then, as a child, I didn't know what was happening to me. There was no language around me for anxiety. And so, one of the things that I'm grateful for now is that we are talking more about mental health. And more, and there's a lot more focus on making the discussion about mental health an everyday discussion in the same way we discuss our physical health. But I wanted to ask you, if it's more than just the fact that we're now open to the fact that we have to be aware of mental health, that we can see anxiety disorders on the rise, or if you think there's something else behind the rise in anxiety that we're seeing.
No, you know what? I think it's something else. I completely think it's something else. I think anxiety disorders and mental health issues are on the rise. I don't think that it's because we have better diagnostics or we notice these things more. I mean, in the past we would have just like thrown someone in a loony bin or like medicated them or, considered them kind of, off, or that's part of their weird personality, but we still were seeing it, right? Like we would still see it. We would just deal with it a different way. Now, I think we really have an epidemic in mental health disorders and mood disorders in our youth, for sure. I mean, all of our population, even like depressed, elderly people. I mean, that's an epidemic as well. People in the middle, super stressed out, moms and dads, caregivers, all kinds of people in that middle age group that are having to, handle all this stuff, plus caregive for their kids and for their elderly. So I just think it's huge. I think that we're, but the problem is that we're not really, well, I mean, I guess in some circles we are really recognizing what the root causes are. We're getting to the bottom of that. It's not just about being able to cope. It's like, how do we cope and what's causing it? So yes, I see that there is a rise. And I actually, I think a lot of people understand what those causes are. And for me, distilling all that information, doing my observations, seeing what I see in my practice, in my own communities, my family, everything, it's environmental, so it's all about the environment that we have created, whether that be physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, community, or cultural, right? So these environments that our kids are growing up in these days are not conducive to, a stress-free life. And so we're living so fast and at such a pace that we are forgetting to do the basics of health, which are eat right. We're not eating right. So if we don't eat right, then we have all kinds of deficiencies in our bodies. So we have mineral and vitamin deficiencies, just basically starving. We're overfed and undernourished, right? We're starving. And so our brains, right, our children's brains need the proper nutrients to create the proper neurochemicals to feel happy, to be stress-free, to have enough GABA, to chill and calm. We need magnesium to actually, relax and feed our cells those minerals that we need. And we don't get enough vitamin B, the B complex, all those folate, the folate and all those really rich leafy greens. Like, what kids eat greens, right? Like, most kids don't, right? Like, they're like, nah, I don't like that. I mean, how are we feeding their brains? How are we creating those neurochemicals? How can we expect them to actually feel good and if they don't eat right? So that's one of those pillars that we're kind of missing, the boat on. If we're going too fast, going for convenience, bag boxes and cans, processed foods that are malnourishing our children. We're eating too much of stuff that's not giving us any sort of benefit. And actually, another thing is the toxicity, right, of our environment. And food is leading to that problem because our food is highly polluted if it's not organic. And even when it is organic, there's that question of whether or not there's some pesticides in it anyway, some residue. It's like chemicals are everywhere in our cleaning products, in our skin products, in our air, in the fuel that we, like we're sitting in traffic and that fuel's just being pumped out of the exhaust pipe of the car in front of us. Like we're inundated with chemicals. And so that's another thing that we are getting from our environment that's actually affecting our children's mental health. And we're not, again, slowing down to take the time to protect ourselves. And there are ways that we can do that. So that's another thing. And we're going too fast to actually see the signs and symptoms, to address those signs and symptoms, because we live in an environment where we medicate and we, kind of cover up and we cope, and we just think that, sometimes we can think that disease is kind of there to stay, and we just sort of have to like deal with the pain and then like maybe shut off the pain for a bit with some kind of medication. But so what I do is I look for root causes of those diseases and those problems, and then instead of covering them up, we get rid of them. Like we take the time, we pay attention, we say, okay, look, my child is anxious. Why? And it's not just because there are other things too. We'll go into that social issue too. That's definitely a part of that. Definitely, by far. But the physical and the mental, emotional, they play on each other. They're both relevant, and they're both just as relevant, because a deficiency in one area, like a physical deficiency, let's say it's because of your food, you don't eat enough, greens, you don't have the vitamin B6 and the proper fats to make the right neurochemicals. Okay, so let's say you have that, but that will actually create social problems, right? And then but then if you have social problems, the stress of your social issues can actually create problems in your neurochemicals. It can deplete it. Or the way you deal with those things, if you're medications can actually deplete your body of vitamins and minerals. So we have to deal with all of those things at the same time. And so another issue so there's the physical, and then there's the emotional response that we have, right? So we have, like, because of the stress and the fast pace, excuse me, we have a really stressed society. Like, who doesn't say they're stressed out nowadays? Everybody. Even when, and people didn't use those words, back in the day. I mean, probably before my time even, and my grandparents, they might have felt stressed. They might have not have had a bunch of money. They might have had a bunch of kids, on the farm or something like that, right? I mean, there might have been, I live in Saskatchewan, Canada, so that's common, was common. So it's just, it was, it would have been, but it wouldn't have been used in those terms and as something that was like normalized into like this hyper bad feeling. Like, just, it's like always just feeling bad. I'm stressed. I gotta go here. Nothing's fun. Nothing is fun. Even those things that you're running to get to, like, why are we doing this? And so it's creating this huge amount of stress that creates physical problems and physiological problems and chemical problems in the body. And honestly, Nicole, if children just learn how to meditate, like 5 or 10 minutes a day, that anxiety, I promise you, would plummet. I promise you. You combine the food, the intake, and also staying away from like the food dyes, reactive foods, foods that kids tend to be, allergic to, a whole bunch of sugar. That's going to create a blood sugar rise and a crash right after. Anxiety, you're going to have anxiety, you're going to have mood problems, you're going to have cranky, hangry kids. Hangry is what you call it. You're hungry and angry at the same time. And, we've all been there. So there's all these processes, right? And so we can go on and on about that. But really, the basics of good, like, healthy living are, like, we tend to overlook and think that it's benign, but all these things I kind of rattled off, and we could go on and on and on and on about those aren't even really necessarily what's important to know. What's important to come away with is that we have that control over many of those things. If we slow down, opt out of this, hamster wheel, just get off and pay attention to those basic fundamental things. Getting in the kitchen and cooking. Everybody's sitting at the dinner table eating. No phones, no cell phones at the dinner table, because that's another issue altogether, are the phones. So we've dealt with and we need some sleep too. I mean, sleep is like, have you ever, okay, tell me how you feel if you don't sleep well.
Oh, I'm cranky. I'm a cranky mommy when I haven't slept.
One night, just one night. And then if you're chronically underslept every single night, you're kicked out of bed to go to school with an alarm clock because, and you have to get there and everybody's stressed out. Nobody's eating a good breakfast. They're eating cornflakes or something like that, or Fruit Loops or whatever, and getting out the door. Then you're having a blood sugar crash in the middle of the day. You're going to have either an angry, unruly child, or anxious or depressed, whatever manifestation that comes into, comes out as. that's it's inevitable. They're not going to learn properly at school. We're setting them up for failure if we just just continue on that hamster wheel. So so slowing down. There's another thing I wanted to kind of talk about too. I'm just going to let you kind of get in there. I'm sorry, I keep talking.
That's okay. Don't be sorry.
I'm so passionate about it.
Don't be sorry at all. There's like so much information coming at us that's rich and juicy that we can all take away. So don't be sorry. I wanted to pick up on one of the things that you touched on. You definitely touched on the ability to slow down so that we could observe our kids. And I wanted to kind of just go back to that one and just talk about how, as parents, do we recognize the difference between fears that our kids will naturally have as they move through life experiences versus the onset of anxiety that we need to pay more attention to. What signs can we look out for?
Well, I mean, I think that if it's affecting their day-to-day life, right? Like if they're not going out for a sport team because they're afraid of of something, like someone talking about them, and they're really or hyper anxious before every time they go out to play, or they don't want to go to birthday parties or gatherings, or or school, or if they don't go to school, they don't want to get together with other kids. Sometimes kids don't even leave their rooms if they're hyper anxious, if they're having panic attacks like you had. Right? Like we know when our kids, I think really like we listen to our intuition, and we know when our kids are really struggling and when it's just something that they need to kind of work through, because life is not easy and it's not meant to be, and we're not meant to shelter our children. So we need to let them go through these things and allow them to have their experiences without feeling like everything's a trauma that really isn't a big deal. Right? Like it's not, but sometimes it's a big deal to them when they have an imbalance. So it's about our listening and our slowing down, and being able to assess that ourselves. We don't need to go to a doctor to get them diagnosed with anxiety disorder. We don't. We just don't. Unless we're looking for a medication, which I really think that there are better ways.
Yes.
So if you will know, especially if they're having panic attacks, especially like no, I can't do this, and then that's when we decide whether it's a situation that they are trying to avoid, which actually might be the reason, right? They might be getting pushed around at school. They might be having social anxiety that is relevant, and it's not because of a chemical imbalance, right? Or it could be they're anxious about everything. They don't want to go to bed by themselves. They're up at night, like crawl into your bed, and they're 12 years old, or they we need to assess where that's coming from, and that's why what I mean by knowing what the root causes are. Is it physical? Is it mental and emotional? Is it social? Is it which one of those, or combination, and how do you address each one? So I do want to touch on that, like the social and the like.
I want to touch on that a bit more, and I want to also see if we can give parents a guide as to how they go about questioning or trying to decipher what's at the root cause of anxiety once they observe it. Because I think one of the challenges that we have as parents is jumping to conclusions before we've actually put the listening ear on and really investigated what's going on with the kids.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, as we go through this and I say, we don't do this, we don't do that, I say we because I am guilty of all of the above.
Yep.
Hello, I've done all of it. I feel like some days I go, I'm such a great mom, and then I go, but did I ever make a mess of things? Like I just, wow, and learned so much along the way, but sorry I had to learn on you guys.
Yeah.
But, I'm telling parents right now, I've done all of this. But these are the gems I've come out with, right? Like my kids are 16, 18, and 20. He's turning 21 in May. So, having gone through all of the stages, I really feel blessed to be able to look back and see what was the best things that I did and what were the ones I really probably shouldn't have done. And learning all this stuff along the way, becoming more involved in actually helping other families with their children and reversing and preventing chronic illness is actually one of the things it's one of the things that I do the most of. Like that's what I focus on. So, okay, so parents. Okay, so you're talking about, what was your question? So you asked me,
how do we help parents work on how to investigate?
Yeah.
What's the root cause?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And so sometimes we need help, right? Sometimes if we know we've identified, so first we go through the basic stuff. Okay. we look at like their social situation. One other thing we really, really, really need to recognize is that we are living in a digital age that is totally like, I feel like our brains are like scrambled eggs. Like this is what's happening, this digital dementia, this era of inundation of information that isn't always good, right? Like this information isn't always teaching you, you know, things about nature and the world and, you know, interesting things. Like it's about like, you know, insular, you know, social strange, you know, behaviors and you know, and actually is really isolating kids and all this stuff with addiction to video games. That's going to create anxiety for sure. If you have a child who is playing an excessive amount of video games, and I mean over an hour a day, I think even an hour a day is a lot. And some of these kids are on there 4 hours, 6 hours. They forget time. They don't even care about going outside. They don't want to engage with people. They think that they're in a community because they're talking and yelling out loud with these, you know, wireless headsets on. But they're with nobody. They're not, right? Like they think they are, but this is not community. This is not what we mean by community. And that needs to stop. I just have to say that needs to stop. And I have seen a lot of bad fallout because we just aren't really slowing down paying attention to that. And then because if you turn it off, you see them, they're gonna be mad at first. They're gonna be like, I don't have anything to do, I'm bored. And if kids are bored, then they're filling their time with stuff that's really like not allowing them to be their creative selves, because they should not ever say they're bored. And if they're just like in between, then they're exploring and then they're like looking in their belly button or you know, they're like twiddling their whatever, who cares? Like, you know, so if you turn it off, you'll see them go outside, you'll see them engage more, you'll see them start going out like, I'm gonna play a sport, I'm gonna go, you know, maybe I should study for that test, you know, like stuff like that. You'll see it happen. They'll come out and want to spend time with mom, you know, they'll help in the kitchen. It will transform your life. Okay, so that's one thing. Okay, so then how do parents assess this? Okay, so first you deal with those sort of the basic things, okay? Are we eating, is my child eating right? And you fix that if they're not.
Right.
Is my child getting enough sleep? You fix that if they're not. Is my child, you know, getting enough me time, rest, play, creative time? You fix that if they're not. Is my child excessively on social media or gaming? You fix that. For sure, if they're not. And I will tell you, if we're talking about anxiety in particular and mental and mood disorders, this is one of the most insidious issues that we have right now, because we are actually allowing, because we think it's benign, we're allowing an addictive behavior that is setting our kids up for failure in every aspect of their lives. I promise you. And so this is one thing we're overlooking, because we're not going to let our kids drink. We don't let our kids do drugs. We don't let our kids, you know, go gamble, but they're gambling all the time on these games. It's just like with your money. I mean, it's like, right? So it is serious. And if you consider it, I liken it to you know, a drug, because it is. It raises the dopamine levels, and then when they don't have it, they want to feel good and they can't feel good without it. It is literally an addiction. So I highly encourage to look at that as one of the main issues. So diet, rest, exercise, sleep, and me time, downtime, stress reduction. And does my child have the tools to meditative tools to step back and respond and not react to things all the time, like react? Do I listen to my child? When you've got those things down, right? Those basic fundamentals of life. Is my, you know, do we do enough outside of the home, but are we also home enough? You know, do I spend enough time together and listening and all those things, right? You deal with those things first. Then if you still feel like, or if there's like an acute situation where there's like major anxiety, like, you know, there's something really wrong, you work with a functional medicine provider, a practitioner, family health coach, someone who's knowledgeable about holistic care and about functional medicine. I do that. That's why, and I actually put plans together for parents to actually, we go through those basics, and that's what we always start with. But then we might need to do some testing. So, you know, like, and if we that could even be like answering a questionnaire, you know, like let's say we suspect that there's like maybe low GABA, which is often the case with anxiety, or there's high glutamate, or there's a food reactivity problem, or this child is presenting with like symptoms of perhaps something like a little more serious, like PANDAS or PANS or autoimmune encephalitis, which is an autoimmune condition of the brain. So the body's actually attacking the brain because of a cross-reactivity with a strep infection. So there's a strep infection causes autoimmunity to the brain, creates all kinds of problems, including OCD, anxiety, like hyper-anxiety, and etc. There's a whole list of issues that or symptoms that come along with PANDAS and PANS and AE. And it can also be caused by like Lyme disease. It can be caused by Epstein-Barr virus. It can be caused by Coxsackie-B. So there are lots of different infections that you could pursue if you've done the basics. Nothing's helping. Okay. You look at food reactivity. You look for something that's creating an inflammation in the brain or some kind of toxicity or deficiency. So you work with someone who knows how to do that. And that's when you can get sort of more into the details. And it might be a matter, honestly, Nicole, sometimes it's just a matter of supplementing with some basic supplements. So you can also start with that. You look at B vitamins, and they need to be methylated B vitamins. So like a B complex, a really good quality, high quality fish oil, because they need the DHA and EPA to feed their brains. We're always nourishing the brain. That's what I always want to think about when I think about things that are mental, emotional. The brain, feed, nourish. It needs those nutrients, and that So high quality fish oil. Magnesium's always beneficial. Always. I never say don't do magnesium. Well, you might be careful with magnesium. No, like you just take it, and if your child has loose bowels, you back off. Right? You just do less.
Okay.
So many of us are deficient in magnesium. I don't ever see a problem with that. Zinc is another thing. So a mixed mineral even that has magnesium and zinc in it. Zinc is essential for mental health. It's essential. And so it's like zinc and B6 in particular. So what else would I suggest? So and get off the sugars for sure. Please.
Let's talk about sugars a bit more, because I think of all the things you've mentioned so far, games and sugar I think are the hardest for parents. And I think parents they actually would probably have an easier time just saying we are going to limit games than they are to sugar. One, sugar isn't just about everything. It's also in all of the convenient foods that we tend to feed our family as opposed to a fresh home-cooked meal. It's in things like milk. It's just, we've added sugar in ridiculous things just so that it can taste good and just hook our kids on it. So how do we begin to move away from a high sugar diet when our kids are used to one?
Okay, first we need to get PO'd about it. First, we need to get annoyed by this whole industry that's shoving the sugar down our kids' throats, because this is like, I actually once read this. It was super harsh, but I keep thinking about it, and it was like a meme, and it said, "Quit diabeting your children." And I'm like, whoa, a lot of blame there, but at the same time, it's like, ooh, ouch, but it's really, really relevant because, I wrote a big, huge piece about, 30 reasons why to avoid fast food like the plague. And one of those issues was sugar, right? Because, and so we also need to understand that industry knows the exact ratio of fat, sugar, and fat, sugar, and salt to put into a processed food to make it addictive. Okay, so if we're talking about addictions, it's the same thing. We can be addicted to certain foods. We want to drink certain things that are good for us. We're going to drink water as opposed to alcohol. Okay, we're going to eat something that's good for us. We're going to eat whole foods as opposed to this garbage that's packaged with a bunch of cartoon characters on it. And I want parents to ask themselves, are we going to let Ronald McDonald tell us what to feed our kids? Because Ronald McDonald doesn't give a crap about your kids. Ronald McDonald has a lot of money, and Ronald McDonald wants to make a lot of money, and wants to say, sell us this bill of goods that we have bought hook, line, and sinker because we are going too fast, that it's going to make life easier. It does not make life easier. It makes it harder, and it makes us sick. And that's a lot harder to be sick than to say, no, you're not going to have sugar. Yeah. And let me tell you, okay, I'm going to give you an example. I have a family member, I'm not going to out who this is, but this little one, and she's just like the most wonderful little girl, and she literally acts like a heroin junkie if she's told no to
Sugar.
Yeah. She is climbing the cupboard screaming. That is an addiction. That is where, and it's either addiction or a major blood sugar crash. She has no control over that because her body actually on the cellular level is saying, I am starving.
Yeah.
So if you're on this sugar loop, they can't help it. They can't help it. So you just need to just feed them good food, slow and steady carbs, right? You don't want anything that's going to spike and then, you don't need to go ketogenic or, you don't have to do that. You want something that's going to burn slow and steady, that's going to be, have all kinds of vitamins and minerals and, nutrients, phytochemicals, all that stuff that's really like we need to function. I actually can't believe a lot, like people function on the food that they eat. I honestly, the body is miraculous to be able to make something out of nothing. I mean, I'm telling you, like it's something that is something out of a whole lot of nothing. Because so like even fruit, whatever, but you don't want to have like 15 oranges and no protein at all or fat, right? Like you need to have it balanced. Main thing is like, the vegetables are actually the main, your main staple. You need adequate fat, good, whole, healthy fat. And you need it adequate. Like fat is not bad. Fat is good. It's the sugar that creates problems like diabetes, right? And problems like heart disease. And it's the sugar. And we could go into that, but I'm not going to go into that. But, and then we need adequate protein. We don't need like Atkins amount of protein, like eating 14 chicken legs. We don't need that, but we need enough protein to build our muscle. And, we need that. So, I hope that answers your question. But just to demonstrate, sugar is, get mad about it because it's like advertising. I mean, none of this is good. That's all advertising. It's telling us that we have a problem and then they're going to fix our problem. Yeah. You're being duped. So just get rid of that. And your kids are too, right? Teaching your kids that no, that's not true. I mean, and they feel like they're going to be happy if they have this cereal. And I'm going to tell you, you're not going to be that happy. Yeah. You're not going to be happy. And so, and then just do it. Don't put anything in your house that they can't eat. Everything in your cupboards, everybody can eat. We don't have a stash for everything is like, I make brownies that I can eat for breakfast. Okay? Yes. Because of the ingredients. There's so much out there. There's so much out there that you should be able to eat your brownies that you make for breakfast. Right? And
That's
not feel
awesome.
Guilty about it.
That's awesome. That sounds like a breakfast I would like. All right. I want to talk about coping and healing. So, and specifically in terms of, let's start by talking about how do we calm the nervous system. So we've recognized our kids exhibiting signs and symptoms of anxiety. What things should we start with first? You talked about diet, cleaning up their diet, and really focusing on the environment. Are they getting enough me time? What else should we be looking at to help them really just calm that nervous system down?
Okay, so there are a few. Okay, I'll do supplements now, and then we'll talk about like practices, mental health practices. Yeah. So so I mean supplementation. Like I sort of touched on that. Some of the basics of supplementation, and to do something like an organic acids test is actually really, really, really beneficial to know where the deficiencies are and the toxicities, as well as neurochemicals, what those are doing. And, actually even recognizing possible dysbiosis in the gut, which is highly relevant when you're talking about mental health. Like, that's another thing we actually haven't talked about is gastrointestinal health, the gut health that, a lot of practitioners are talking about these days, and rightly so, because we are actually finding that the microbes in the gut, there are microbes in the gut that kind of control things, like, they're our immune system. They actually digest our food. We don't do it. They do, right? So then we have to absorb what they digest. It's so amazing. And then, so there's these microbes we want there. There's some more microbes we just want in smaller doses that, kind of need to be there, but we don't want a whole bunch of Clostridia. We don't want a whole bunch of, yeast, candida. We don't want that, but there's going to be there. We need to have balance. So we need to feed that. Again, that comes down to good diet, right? If you're eating a good diet, you're feeding those good microbes. The sugar is going to feed the ones that aren't so good. So that's another reason to eat well. And also, keep the integrity of the gut lining. And so, and then also we are discovering, and we know now that there's a microbiome in the brain. right? And so that affects the mental health. If anybody, what's it called? I just want to look at my book here. It's like one of my favorite books in the world. Oh, the Psychobiotic Revolution. Amazing. Read it. The Psychobiotic Revolution. It will tell you what strains, do what and of bacteria, but really the basic premise of the whole book, and then all the study and research now, is that there is a microbiome in the brain that is that we can affect by the way we live, what we eat, what we supplement. So again, starting with just really good practices will actually feed your brain microbiome that's going to actually lead to good mental health. So all right, so that was one thing I wanted to mention. And then also supplementation. So like I said, I went down kind of a list of supplements that just like a top 4. Oh, another one, vitamin D, like especially if you live in the north. I am really with the crowd, the nature crowd. Okay. I would rather do it through nature, but I don't think we get enough. We just don't. I mean, if you want to move to somewhere where you're like on the beach every day and like, all that, I would go. But if you are not in a position to do that, you might need, like I'm in Saskatchewan, Canada, even in the summer, we might have 2 months of enough direct sun. We have a lot of sun. It's sunny, but it's not close enough to here.
I'm in England, so we get 2 days. You don't get 2 months, we get 2 days.
I know, I was there. I should have looked you up when I was there, but yeah, okay. So, but anyway, the sun, we don't get enough of that, sunlight, like to be outside, it's cold, so we have to supplement, but also you need to do the right supplements, the right, it has to be proper, like it has to be bioavailable, I should say, from a really good company. So your best bet is to go to like a health food store. Do not get them at a pharmacy, please, and please, and please do not buy. I'm not going to name any brands, but don't buy your supplements at a pharmacy. That is like, they will be not good, because they actually be harmful. So get some at a reputable store if you're going to supplement. And if you need to fine tune that supplementation, again, you need to work with somebody who can run like at least an organic acids test, and you can assess the nutritional status from that. Okay, so but from moving on from supplements though, meditation, okay? Holy, I'm telling you, Nicole, it is, okay, years ago, after my daughter was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, and it was probably a few months, and I was running, and I kind of knew I was running a lot, but I still kind of just did it, and I didn't really, I thought I took care of myself, but I didn't really, like, I was sort of doing a little bit of, like, yoga that was, like, exercise, like, this is fun, and then I had a friend who was teaching yoga, like, training, and she's like, you should take my teacher training. I'm like, I could be a yoga teacher, but I'm kind of doing other stuff, and I don't know, like, she goes, no, you need to take this. And so in 2012, I said, okay, I'll take it. I don't know, I'll just do it. It's like cost me like thousands of dollars, and like every single weekend, all year long, like 3 days a weekend, every 3 weeks it was a weekend. Okay, so I had to drag my whole family into town because we lived on an acreage, and we'd stay with my mom and like for the whole weekend, and like I would go for like, these 8-hour days, yoga, and I was just like wrecked at the end. And then but you know what? I learned that's like saved my life because it taught me yoga up here, not just the physical, but like this whole idea, right? Of effort and non-effort, of letting go of the past, and of the expectations for the future, and living in the now, and all of these things that I didn't realize I was actually sculpting my brain. So I got into thinking, and working and with clients and stuff, and myself with neural sculpting and meditation, like mindfulness-based stress reduction, these things that actually allow us to slow down, because it's a tool. And I don't just mean like in the activities that we plan, but actually in our mental state and how we think. And anxiety is like this loop that you can't get out of, this stress response. And so when we're doing something like a meditation, what we're doing is actually sculpting the brain. We're training it to address any sort of like stimuli in a more appropriate way, and to understand that this is not life or death, because what's happening when you're late for your soccer game or when you have a final exam coming, this is like the brain, you don't know, your brain does not know that you're not being chased by a tiger, you're not going to die. It thinks it's good, you're going to die, like literally.
Yep.
It's like the fire department's there, the cops are there, there's like alarms going off, you know, like, and it's like it's hard on you. Like it's really it's wear and tear on the body. Just to kind of, you know, put it in a really short, succinct way to look at it, it's wear and tear. So to meditate, I think, is a really, really helpful skill for children.
Okay.
There's even like Kundalini meditation that you can use with kids that's like all about the breathing. There's one that's like super strange, like you breathe like in your, with like a, it's one like this,
Yes.
and you breathe out your nose. And you're like, and at first you have to pay attention because the kids have to learn it.
Yeah.
And they're like, what's this? And like, how do you do this? I was teaching this to my like 5-year-old niece, and literally, I'm not kidding, in like a couple of seconds of doing it, she laid on the floor and went, oh.
Yeah.
She just laid on the floor and did that.
Yeah.
It was so cool. And I was like, I totally didn't expect it to work. I thought she was going to make Auntie's nuts because they all think Auntie's nuts. You know, like Auntie was like, woo-woo, doing all this weird stuff. It's not going to work. I want my cookie, you know. No, like, let's try this. And it was like, literally, it seriously works. So things like that, mindfulness-based stress reduction, like, you know, kids love that. Like, they love Shavasana at the end of yoga. They love the yoga. It's fun. But that Shavasana, when they're laying there like a corpse, and they've got like a little bit of nice music, they're like, oh, man, this is great. This is great. It doesn't have to be like a really uncomfortable meditation where, you know, it's abstract and they don't really know what's going on. It's like with kids, you keep it really concrete. It doesn't need to be long. It can be 5 or 10 minutes. It can be interactive. You can do like a guided meditation. You're in a forest and, you know, there's like the dew and then you're thinking about the waterfall. It's like, because they're training their mind to let go of this other crap and go to somewhere else. Yeah. And you're always bringing it back. Belly breathing with kids, you breathe like, and then you breathe into the belly and out and always through the nose. And teaching them not to mouth breathe. That's stress breathing. That's like when you're getting
hyperventilating.
You are good
at stress.
Yeah. By that kind of breathing. Yes. So you're through the nostrils, and then Kundalini is a little different because you do some stuff through that, like I was doing, through the mouth, like that. That's not the. There's like thousands of Kundalini practices. I have so you seek it out. You get an audio tape. Yes. And listen to that. Find something on YouTube. You find so if you know those keywords like neural sculpting, mindfulness-based stress reduction, Kundalini yoga, breath work, belly breathing, guided meditation. So those 6 things will actually give you a wealth of stuff to find, seek out. Because some people will annoy you. Like you might not like the voice of someone who's doing it. Or some people you really love and you're going, that sound of his voice just makes me fall asleep, I mean, and there's chanting, for adults. I mean, children might like it. I do this with my kids too. Like we did some chanting and it might be a little weird first, but it's really great. And they get to use their voice, and their own voice is so calming and healing to them. And also, when we're talking about anxiety, I think this is really important to know, and this is another lovely thing I learned from Kundalini Yoga, was that our own voice and the human voice in general is really healing to the central nervous system. And we want that to be balanced. We want that to be balanced. So that's beautiful. There's other things. So meditation, mindfulness, neural sculpting. There's a couple other things I want to mention that get honorable mentions here. Cold laser therapy is really, really helpful. It actually improves the health of the mitochondria. That also reduces inflammation, and we want brain inflammation to go down when we're talking about mental health issues. So we are accelerating that anti-inflammatory, response, whatever. We want it to be anti-inflammatory. Also another thing is massage. And some kids love massage.
It, yeah.
Like, and we can do our own massage. Like, I used to massage they don't let me anymore, but their hands and their feet before bed, right? We use essential oils. So there are many, many, many botanicals that are just like, do not underestimate essential oils. They don't just smell good. They are biochemically interacting with the chemicals in our bodies. They can actually create different chemical cascades that we want. So we want to be chill. We want to be, fighting infection. We want to have the immune system working properly. We want to dampen any autoimmune condition or any autoimmune response. So especially in anxiety, essential oils are wonderful, and they're also uplifting. Citrus, if you want to use citrus, that's like, I'm heavy. Yeah. I like, it's like during the day, you want to chill them out. Like everybody wants to chill out.
Yeah.
Lavender at night. Lavender is one of famous for having that effect on the central nervous system. So don't ever underestimate that. Also, chiropractic care, if there are subluxations, that causes stress in the body, can create anxiety too. Chiropractics is the bomb. You find a really good chiropractor, and that you add that to your list. And then I could go on and on about lots of alternative things like, acupuncture, acupressure, but there are so many things. Tea. Ooh, valerian tea smells like sweaty socks, but it's like my go-to. It chills me out. And it's like, you might get your teens to drink it, maybe your little kids. Put a little honey, whatever. I'm not worried about honey. Raw honey is majorly good for you. But it smells like sweaty socks. I warn you. But you can do other chillax tea.
I might need a different tea.
Yes. And then what you do, if you have anxiety before bed, you have a routine. Everything's off by 8. If it's 9 and your kids are older, okay, fine. But everything, no blue lights. Blue lights are a killer, literally killing us. Especially if they're on at night, because it totally disrupts the circadian rhythm. So no blue lights, nothing before bed. You're reading, you're visiting, you're playing games, you're having tea, you have your nightly thing, you're massaging your feet, you're doing self-care, you're slowing down, you're connecting, if you have to have a snack, it's not a bunch of sugar, it's this is a beautiful time of day. And then if you need a little help, you look into the relevance of something again, I call this a night stack, maybe L-theanine and magnesium before bed. Some kind of essential oils that you're, either putting on the skin or putting in a diffuser as well before bed. And then, what was the other thing I was going to mention too? L-theanine. And also sometimes people use melatonin if there's an obvious deficiency there and you have some, advice and direction with that, because I don't necessarily like to use that if you're creating that, if your body's actually making its own melatonin, but sometimes you need a little help to get to that point if your child is really suffering.
Yeah. You know what, Carla? It's been a world of resources that you've given us in such a short space of time. But I think what I hear coming from you is that we need to take a step back, calm down, and get back to the basics. Get back to the basics of natural living, natural connecting, both with ourselves, each other, and our nature. And I love all the tips that you've given us, very practical tips, even for busy families that we could incorporate. And before we let you leave, there's just one more thing I wanted to talk about. So twice a year, you do an online health summit for parents and for families. And it really covers a wide range of topics. And I just wanted to talk, because I know your next health summit is coming up in May. And I wanted you to touch a bit about what's going to be the main focus for the next summit.
Okay. Well, actually, it's a little rarer than twice a year. I was trying to do them once a year at one point, and then I haven't done one since 2016.
Right.
Sorry. Ooh. So the next one is coming up in May, and it's the Children's Health Summit 4. So this will be the 4th one, and our topic this year is preventing and reversing childhood chronic illness. And so, and I focus on that because that's really what's happening. And we start with the basics. Anybody who goes to this summit or attends it, it's online. Anybody will learn a ton of stuff. You don't have to have children who have chronic illness. Like I said, it's about preventing and reversing childhood chronic illness. And we are I have 48 speakers. It's insane. It's totally insane. I know, it's insane. but it's manageable. See, this is what I do. I have a lot of information for people, but I try to synthesize and organize it so that people can work through it step by step. So every day of the summit, it's going to be about 10 days long. I may have to extend it because it's quite big, but it'll be about 10 days long starting May 13th. And so if you go to the children'shealthsummit.com you will actually
put the link.
Have a link.
Yes, I will.
You're going to have a link. So go to that link because that will definitely get you to the right page. And then if you put your name and email in there and give us permission to send you notification whenever, when the summit starts and the links to send you the links, you will have access to that summit for those full 10 days. So you can listen to all of the talks. And every day there's a suite of talks that are given, that are released. So, they'll be categorized. So one will be about mental, emotional health, and mood disorders. And one will be about, brain health and, the sort of anatomy about that. And one of them will be about autism and neurological disorders. And one will be about autoimmunity. And, another one about, we go through so many different issues that are affecting our children. We even do childhood cancer. And then we talk about a bunch of, specifics about, treatments and therapies and, and holistic plans and all of that stuff. We go through so much stuff in that summit. And then so we do that for the duration of the summit. And so I welcome everybody to come and just learn and absorb whatever you can during that summit, because we've got a really stellar lineup of just not only wonderful, brilliant people, but people who really care, about this and they know a lot. Like and it's not the standard of care that we're getting. It is above and beyond. So join us. I would really love to have everybody come.
I can't wait. And I want to say thank you very much. Today's been a wealth of information, so valuable, even for my own family, in terms of tips that we can take away, just reminding us to get back to the basics and stay focused on what we really need to have a more calmer, more centered, filled life. So thank you very much for sharing with us today, Carla.
Thank you for having me, Nicole. I so appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you for joining us for this episode. We're all about sharing and supporting this village. So if you found value in this episode, be sure to share it with your family and friends. And remember, this is a weekly show. So if you haven't already, subscribe and hit that bell icon so that you'll be notified of our next episode. As we always say in the village, you're just one connection away. With love and gratitude, empower us. Until next time.